613 golfers, this is certainly not the start to the week that I think everybody was hoping for. I am certainly in that group of wishing it was a better beginning. Hi again, I am Jeff Botter, publisher of Flagstick Golf Magazine, and you're listening to the 613 Golfer podcast presented by TaylorMade Golf and the all-new family of Sim2 drivers, irons, hybrids, and fairways. Check it all out at tailormadegolf.ca. Not a good start to the week, people. As we all know, we heard that the government has shut down golf as well as a number of other things. So we feel for all those other businesses and activities that people can do. But a little closer to home, obviously, is the fact that we can't play golf. We can't go to driving ranges. It's not fun. I totally get that. And believe me, I am not a political person. I will not jump into the political ring and have a whole bunch of opinions about Ford and the government and how they're mishandling or not mishandling the way this has all been going down. It hasn't been pretty to watch, but I really feel like at the end of the day, the decisions that are being made have to be decisions that are made in our favor and not designed to cause the pain and suffering and negativity that has been created by it. I feel like they are trying to do what they can for our health and well-being, and I'm kind of just taking that approach to it. This whole pandemic has been something that has greatly affected Flagstick and our business operation. We're constantly adapting and changing and trying to figure out a way to get through it. Unfortunately, as popular as golf has been when it is open, that's not exactly what works in our favor. But we'll not get into that now. Kind of puts a little bit of a damper on this show, because this is it's one of those shows. This is the show that when I started the podcast, this is the episode that I circled on my calendar. I was very excited about this episode because for two reasons. Number one, this is the episode that follows the release of the spring edition of Flagstick and our first issue, spring 2021 edition, and that it features our Hot Picks 2K21 section or feature. A big part of what we do every year. This is the issue. This is the first issue of the year. Hot Picks is in it. Very exciting. A lot of work goes into putting this together. And another reason why I circled this episode is because Scott Mccloud, associate publisher of Flagstick Golf Magazine, we always planned that he would come on when we released the spring issue and Hot Picks and come on and just dive right into page after page of equipment and get his thoughts and his opinions about why certain products were picked, what products excite him, get a little bit of dialogue going about it, because golf equipment is an exciting thing. And this is an exciting time for our publication. And, we're going to bring Scott on and to talk about all of this great stuff amidst all the negativity and sadness that exists with golf courses not being open. If there's one thing that we can do is everybody can listen to this podcast or watch us on YouTube, and they can get their golf equipment fixed at least. So we're going to be back right after this sponsorship message, and we're going to talk with Scott Mccloud about the Hot Picks 2K21 in Flagstick Golf Magazine.
Why do we say things like,
well, not going to beat that one today?
Or worse,
there's the one shot that'll keep you coming back.
Why can't it be more like 5 or 10 or even 50 shots that keep you coming back? That's why we made the all-new Sim2. With a cap-back design, they're built differently to help give you more forgiveness and more distance more often. So if someone says the key to golf is
lowering your expectations,
just say,
nah, it's actually playing better irons.
The all-new Sim2 irons from TaylorMade.
That's a good point.
Well, as I said right off the intro of the show, this is an exciting episode for me, being able to have Scott Mccloud coming on and talking about Hot Picks. So let's not delay anymore. Let's get right into it and welcome Scott into the show. Well, Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Jeffrey, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Have you recovered a little bit from the whole lead-in production week that used to be? I mean, production week used to be a lot worse than it is now, but we still call it production week, even though it's production forever before each issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a busier time than normal. Obviously we're still putting out our normal newsletters and our content on the website, but developing the magazine at the same time, working on all those different stories, coordinating them, getting content up to the website, obviously making sure that you've got the graphics to work with as
Get
far
the
as
head shaking with all the stuff all the time.
Exactly, images of products and things like that. So it's a big task. It's definitely a little bit draining, but it's always nice to have it done. That's for sure.
No question. Done is good. So I kind of alluded to in the intro as I was setting up you being here that I circled on the calendar this episode of the podcast because this was the one that I was bringing the golf guru, the equipment guru, Scott Mccloud, on to talk about this massive beast that is Hot Picks 2K21. And you remember what it was like. People should know this is our 25th anniversary season of the magazine, officially celebrating 25 years of publishing Flagstick in the May edition, but it's still our 25th year. And we actually started doing equipment guides long before this. We started doing equipment guides officially in 1999, I think was the what did you call it before we came on? You called it something. The first official. I
don't know what I nicknamed it. I mean, it would. I don't know, boondoggle more than anything, but I mean, it was. The first official
equipment gong show.
Yeah, it was. That's for
was
sure.
1999 was the first equipment gong show, and we talked in one of the other episodes about how Hot Picks. We go down and collect all that data from the PGA show and compile it. Much different now, but it doesn't change from 99 to the first official Hot Picks issue, which was 2005, to now. It's still a massive amount of work to pull this thing together.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about sort of evaluating things, but without doing a sort of a hard judgment on it. Let's just say that. I mean, we're not talking about these items that we have in our hot picks being definitive testing. That would be very hard to do. I mean, there's so many things that are subjective, and it's very difficult for me to go and test something and relate it back to what a consumer would do as far as trying the same product, and went down that road before of trying to do that sort of thing, but it was just too hard to do. So really what we ended up doing with the hot picks, and I think we talked about that before, was just trying to find items that are of interest, ones that sort of jump out to us when we look through the landscape. And as we said, we start months and months ago and hit different things, go to different product knowledge sessions, and then sort of distill it down to 50 some odd products that we feature in the magazine. And it takes a fair bit of work, and we try to take it as seriously as we can, and try to provide good feedback. And I think what people will know when they look through the sections is that we present the thoughts from the company of what they say about a product, and then we present our thoughts as well. So, which in most cases, I guess, would be my thoughts. Just my perspective of what I see the product maybe doing for a golfer, or why it's notable for them to look at. It could be something for pricing. It could be something with the material that they could use. It could be something for, what it could do for them out on the golf course. So yeah, it is a big project, one we take joy in doing, but it always takes a little bit of work every year.
Well, it is the biggest thing that we do throughout the course of the year. There's a lot of features and stuff that we write through the course of the year, and things that we publish and cover. But Hot Picks essentially is, and there's a reason why it's in that first issue most years too, is because we need the most amount of time to pull together all this data. And it was interesting that you talked about how we go about displaying the content that, and even how that's evolved over the years from what used to just, for the most part, be pull as much of the data that you can from the brochure or the information, the spec sheet that's sent to you, and give that to the customer or to the reader. Now it's more, it has become more of, this is, like you said, this is what they, and it is spelled out that way, what they say, what we say, and what you say essentially is your opinion about what that product is about and what that can do for each golfer. So that's what differentiates a lot of what we're doing from what other stuff is out there. Because let's be honest, we're not the only equipment guide. We're not the only hot picks. We're not the only list of product out there. It's also interesting that you talked about how we produce the product, how we choose the products that are in there. Yeah, there's all of the major brand names are generally featured in some respect or another.
For sure.
But it's the other ones that are featured in there, the not so popular names that you might not have heard of, but they're quality product. And maybe this is the only place or the only way that you will hear of it and see them sort of grouped together with some of these other, major equipment companies.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, obviously, with things like marketing and so forth, a lot of manufacturers certainly dominate the voice in the market. But there are good products out there from other companies that are maybe yet to be discovered, or just people don't give them the time to look at them. And we see that over the years. What ends up happening is that we see an evolution in a product category where a manufacturer, I'll take an example of Mizuno, for an example. 4 or 5 years ago, I was hitting a Mizuno driver and talking about it and putting in the hot picks, and people are like, why would you look at Mizuno as a driver? There's not many players using it on tour and so forth. But people using it on tour is not really, it's not really as important to us. I mean, it plays a part in it, but it really is about what the product is notable. So for an example, like I said, now we see Mizuno people using the Mizuno drivers and going to buy them more at retail and so forth. So it's kind of going and discovering products, whether it be as rangefinders, bags, training systems, those sort of things. And then, all right, let's bring a little bit of light to them more than just the big names that everybody knows.
So Scott, let's dive into it a little bit. Let's dive into it a little bit. We've got this issue is out there. People are starting to read it, but those that haven't found it at flagstick.com yet, and yes, that is where you will find it, flagstick.com. You can read just the way that we've built it this year, the way we've combined the magazine as a digital publication with the website, so that we're giving people the opportunity to view however they want to view it. Hot Picks is there in its entirety in the digital magazine. You can pull it up on your desktop and you can flip through page by page and click on, all the links that are there. Or you can go directly to flagstick.com and you can see it section by section there, or you can go to the digital issue and you can click on each section and view the section and then bounce back to the digital issue and read the rest of the digital issue, which is kind of the way we would encourage most people to do it. But let's get into it a little bit. We call it Innovation Marches On. And why don't you explain a little bit, first of all, why we called it Innovation Marches On? And then after that, let's dig deep into our first category.
Yeah, I think every year we sort of pick out an overarching theme of things that are going on in the industry, just to sort of, tie a bow around everything that's going out there and really give people an overall idea of what's going on in the industry. And, last year was a busy year for golf. With the pandemic, there was a lot of people taking up the game. It also caused some supply issue problems as well for a number of major manufacturers. So, we saw a lot of delays in products for people that were, doing custom orders or even now things like grips and shafts are, taking longer than normal. But, as a result of that boom in the game, we'll call it that, or we'll call it a little bump up, however it's going to, play out. We've seen manufacturers adapt. And the one thing that we're starting to see is that even just in the products that we're starting to come out at the end of the year and start of this year, and you'll see it more coming through this rest of the year, because there are more beginning players playing, people coming to the game for the first time, we're seeing manufacturers explore different things. One, they're looking at different price points because obviously they're considering, budget and value for these people that are coming to the game that may not necessarily know if they're going to stay with the game long term, but they want good new products. So, some price points are opening up that way. The other side as well is that we're seeing an emphasis more on product that might be more suitable for those emerging golfers, players that have a hard time getting the golf ball in the air, have a hard time, not hitting a slice, a lot of different things. So what you'll see is that, some manufacturers, instead of having one, hybrid, they've made a couple, and they've made one that's, designed one way and one that's another. This is really a continuation of the process as far as fitting and things like that they've been doing. The other thing that you're seeing as well from an innovation standpoint and how it marches on, manufacturers are also having to look at things like, virtual fittings a little bit more. Now, it's not a perfect way to go about doing a fitting. It's a starting point for people to do a fitting, but because there is a little bit of, less availability in times for people to, go through to fittings as far as physically, less of an option for some of the retail locations to be open and so forth, the manufacturers have had to adapt and say, all right, how can we go about helping these people find the clubs and find the products that they need? We need better tools online that they can access remotely. So overall, it's just a year of progression and change like we see every single year. And despite the fact that obviously there is a lot of, health issues and different things are happening around the world, innovation continues to march on.
I like it. Well, there you go. You have the explanation from the man himself as to why we called it what we called it. All right. Now,
yes, sir.
Let's dig in. So 613 golfers, here we go. Hot picks 2K21. We're digging in. Let's start with category number 1, drivers. What do we got in there, Scott?
Well, drivers is an interesting category, and I'm going to start off with a couple. Obviously, everybody pays attention to this category a lot. People will note that the driver category, we have a few more products than we have in some of the other categories, and that's just because there is a big demand for drivers. Everybody's enamored with hitting the golf ball far, hitting the golf ball better. But I think,
what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, exactly. But I think what's neat, though, is that people are now looking at, these golf clubs as a little bit more of an investment. They're realizing that they have to get fitted properly for them. And, there are great fitting options within these products. So, just to highlight a couple of products, I'll take it two ways. I'll take it, one in the fact of Ping, for an example. Ping has a G425 driver. Now, in that 425 driver, they have 3 different models. They obviously have a sort of a max model, sort of super forgiving. They have one that's a low spinning model, but then they also have one that's called the straight flight technology. And I've actually chose the straight flight technology one to have in this hot picks. And the reason why I picked that particular model is that people will find that in a fitting process, it offers probably the widest range of left to right variability within a golf club as far as a driver, as any on the market. And that's really important for a fitter in fine tuning what a player needs based on what their shot shape is and trying to dial them in. And I think that's the great part when people do make their big investments now. They can get tuned as much as possible within a product and not just buy a product and then sort of hope it works. They know it works before they leave the shop and before they leave the, the fitting and or the range or wherever they are. So that was one that really stood out for me.
Awesome. I was looking at, anybody watching, you can see me looking at the screen to the right here because I do have there's a lot of information there. We're smart guys, golf guys, but we can't possibly keep, I can't possibly keep it all in my brain. But
that's right.
And just looking at the driver category, and we've got products in there, Mizuno, Callaway, Tour Edge is in there. Tour Edge has been a company that we've watched for years and years and years. Not, they're more popular now than they were, particularly with the champions, PGA Tour champions. Lots of guys are playing that product on tour now. It always was a great product. Ping obviously in there, Titleist, tailor-made with the new Sim 2 technology, which is interesting. But Cobra has some stuff in there. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. There's a lot of stuff that wasn't in there as well. But obviously, as you can see, there's 8 or 9 drivers in there, and there's not really, there's a corner here or a corner there. I could have maybe thrown 1 or 2 more in, but it's not happening. So, but that it is what it is. So, so let's turn the page. Yeah. And I'm just going to literally do it here, people. And the way it goes, the digital issue turns the page. It's like I have a paper copy right in front of me, I don't. Irons.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about irons. What do we got in there? I see my brand in there, my current brand. I got the Mira irons. I do play Mira irons. I see them in there. Not a popular brand that people would popular, but not at the level that some people would see the general normal ones to be in there. But what do we got in the irons category?
Yeah, I mean, if using the Miura one for an example, Miura is a very high-end manufacturer, based in Japan. Most people, if they've been to a premium fitter, they might have seen their products before. But the one thing they will note that is a lot of their forged products that they have, not only are they high-end, but they're generally targeted more towards the better player. They've got some stuff that's, kind of in the middle, but they've never really had an iron, or at least that I've felt, that was really designed for a large range of skill levels. And the one that they brought out this year, the PI 401, larger profile, more offset, more what players would like in a super game improvement iron. So if you're somebody who's got, needs as far as your irons are concerned, as far as you need a little bit of help, a little bit more forgiveness, and you're willing to make an investment in your game, but you didn't necessarily find the ones that you liked before in the Miura lineup, this is one that stands out that way. And just because it's very different from some of the products I've had before, I mean, in most cases, if you say Miura, most people, if they are familiar with the brand, they start thinking about blades and, muscle back designs and slight cavities, but this is a larger one. And that's why it stood out for us.
Nice. All right. Again, some really good products in there. Srixon has, we have an iron in there from Srixon in there. We have an iron in there from Mizuno in there. So, there's some really good stuff in there, and I encourage people to make sure that when you're checking out the digital issue or the hot pick section online, that you take a read on everything, take a look at those images, click through some of that stuff, go to the manufacturer's pages and get a little bit more detail, especially when you're making those buying decisions, because the iron that you might think you're looking for might not be the one that you actually are looking for. All right, let's turn the page again. So now we're into Fairway Woods, and we all have our favorites in the Fairway Wood. I know that people have in their bag stuff that they played 5 or 6 years ago. I commented to you yesterday, I think it was, that if I still had my TaylorMade V-Steel Fairway Wood, I'd be a very happy guy. It's a 17-degree beast, but it's gone. But I do like the one that's in my bag now. But what do we got in the Fairway Woods category?
Yeah, fairway woods are always interesting. Generally, when we talk about fairway woods, we're usually talking about a 3-wood primarily. And, the fairway wood has the hardest job of any club because we're using it 2 ways. One, we're using it off the ground. So that's generally a situation where we have a downward strike of the golf ball, but then we're also using it off the tee as well, which is, a whole different set of characteristics where it might be, as I said, on a tee, slightly upwards, swing. And so there are 2 different jobs where we're asking it from the same club. So it can be very difficult to find one that we love and then we want to stick with. So people will tend to have a 3-wood longer than any other club we found over the years. But one that I found in here that really jumped out, a company that's done a great job with fairway woods for 30 years now, Callaway Golf. They did a BB21 set that they came out with, but now they've come out with a specific, we'll call it a women's line is how they determine it. Now, understand when we go through and talk about fitting and talk about men's, ladies, or whatever, it's really universal. The golf ball doesn't know who's hitting it, but this line is really designed for specific characteristics of certain female golfers. So this is the Reva fairway wood, very easy to hit, has a neat look to it, real simple to get in the air, lightweight shaft, low center of gravity, and it stands out because of that. So if you've got an option, maybe you've got someone in your family that struggles to get the golf ball in the air, wants to hit a little bit longer, and they're going to have to hit the golf ball in the air if they want to hit a little bit longer. They want to carry it. It doesn't want to be rolling along the ground. This is a good mix for them that way.
Nice. All right. So moving into the next category, this is the category that I particularly like because those of us who are maybe getting a little bit older and don't necessarily have the club, well, you still have the club head speed, judging from your TrackMan simulator numbers, but I certainly don't, and long irons are just not my thing anymore. The hybrid has been a saving grace for me and for a lot of other golfers out there. And this year, the hybrid category has some really cool stuff in it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the hybrid products that are out there?
Yeah, I mean, this is where we start to delve into some other brands as well. Obviously the premium brands that we're familiar with or more familiar with, we rattle off those names as we have, earlier. But, in this category, there's some neat products that will do the job for you, but are not necessarily ones that you're going to first look at. So, the Wilson Launchpad Hybrid is in here. Again, Wilson, obviously a long-standing brand, been around a long time, has a certain heritage to it, but maybe people these days don't really look to it as far as something that they're going to buy in the premium market. And it's not necessarily in the premium market, but what I'll say though is that all the characteristics of this line certainly have the features that you would expect from a hybrid. Like you said, if you struggle with club head speed, want to get to launch the golf ball in the air, maybe struggle as well with, spin control, you're not getting enough with a long iron, maybe shot shape as well. So the Wilson Launch Pad Hybrid really does a good job of that. And, it's available for all different segments, men, women, so forth, and for a decent price as well. So again, this is not all about hot picks. It's just picking out the most expensive stuff and we throw them in the magazine. That's not necessarily the case. We try to look for something that provides a little something for everyone.
Well, I think that's what Hot Picks is all about. Is it's a sampling of what's available out there,
Right.
and it's not just going to the go-tos and saying, "Oh, here's what they have. Here's what they have. Here's what they have." It's kind of looking for the little guy too, and what might appeal to just about every level of golfer, skill wise or budget wise. So,
Yep.
And the hybrid category is no different. All right, continuing to move on here, the scoring clubs, the wedges.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
talk about some of the wedges.
Yeah, we definitely love wedges. It's something you and I talk about a fair bit. And, we look in through our bags all the time. We were actually having a conversation about that last night as far as, wedges. There's a lot of cool stuff that's happening in wedges. I mean, most people will look at wedges and go, it's just a high lofted iron. There's no big deal. But I'll tell you what, there has definitely been a lot of progression in technology that's being used in these clubs. It's not just about a plain shape. There's much more to it than that as far as technology. And one that continues to stand out for me is the Ping Glide 3.0. And part of the reason why the Ping stands out for me is not because of the look, not because of the many fitting options, and they have different bounces, sole grinds, lofts, and so forth. It's the continued use of something called the Hydropearl Finish that they make use of. And what this really does is that it helps repel water, and it helps keep it off the face. And most people really aren't familiar with the fact that this is all about friction. If you want to get spin, you need friction. And the issue that happens for a lot of people is that they go out and they play their regular round of golf on a dry day. They get a certain amount of spin with a golf ball. They make the exact same swing on a day where the ground is a little bit more wet. All of a sudden they get flyer golf balls, ones that are going longer, launching higher, don't have as much spin. The whole idea here with the Glide 3.0 and the Hydropearl Finish is that it repels that water off a little bit so that you keep the same type of conditions all the time on that club face. So no matter if it's wet or dry, you end up getting a repeatable result, similar launch conditions, similar spin rates. So that's kind of neat as far as that technology. And it's something that you wouldn't even have thought of 10 or 15 years ago.
No, definitely not. Now, with wedges, I mean, there's a number of different wedges in there, and some of the things with respect to you talked about the finish, but the face, the material, the way that the faces are manufactured now, how they can do different abrasion technologies on the faces as well, because obviously square grooves is no longer an option for manufacturers, which kind of is what sort of spearheaded all of this, trying to achieve something with the face of the club that would allow them to get that spin back without having to use the grooves, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of technologies that manufacturers had to explore because of groove tech or groove rule changes and things. And one thing that you'll note, a wedge I think you're familiar with, but the Cleveland Golf and their RTX Zip Core Raw, this raw finish. You're seeing a few manufacturers. TaylorMade has one as well, and other manufacturers, Titleist too, have raw finish wedges. And the whole idea there is a similar type thing. They're trying for consistency as far as result. Raw just means that they don't have any chrome plating on the head. And chrome plating, in essence, can actually fill in the grooves just by a little bit. It's not by a lot, but it's enough that it changes the volume of the grooves, and it can take away the ability for those grooves to move away dirt, water, all the things that can affect, again, spin rates and so forth, launch angles. And, so it is an option manufacturers will look to. Raw is probably more popular on the tour, but now we're seeing it come to consumers as well.
Cool. All right. Now, this is an interesting category. Always an interesting category is the putter category. Who knows what kind of design shapes, whatever, are going to come out. You almost close your eyes and wait to turn the pages of whatever the manufacturers are dreaming up, because this category just blows your mind, where a wedge, a hybrid, a three-wooded driver can have a similar shape year after year with some slight modifications. A putter, my goodness gosh, knows what they're going to come up with, right? So what do we got in the putter category this year?
Yeah, there's a lot that happens here in the putter category. And I mean, one of the biggest things that continues to be a theme within the putters is stability more than anything. Trying to get putter heads so they don't twist as much, especially on off-center hits. I mean, average amateur will obviously, their strike pattern for when they putt is obviously more heel toe than dead center. And what you're trying to do is to make sure that the club head is not twisting as much, so it doesn't send the golf ball offline as much. So, we'll see that in, Titleist and their Phantom X, as far as a larger mallet head. Cleveland addresses that a little bit by, pushing mass a little bit more forward in their face and changing the spin rates that way. At the same time, manufacturers are also not trying to make them big and blocky. They're trying to have that high moment of inertia category without having a massive head, and they're able to do that with heavy tungsten weighting. You'll see that in the TaylorMade, the Spider EX, for an example. It's a mallet. It's more compact than probably some of the other ones you've seen before in the history of the company, but it still provides that same stability. And then you also see a lot of uses of different multi-materials in the inserts, and that's providing different types of feels, because that's important for every golfer, is that that feel has got to match up with whatever golf ball they're using and calibrates with what they know as far as feel is concerned. And those are the things that start to come down to preferences more than anything. So it doesn't matter what we tell you or what a test tells you. I mean, it matters to the golfer what they feel and how that golf ball performs for them off the face. So that really, determines a lot of what they're looking at in those inserts.
I've always felt that with the putter category, especially every year we do equipment guides in the hot pick section. I always felt that with the putters is all of the technology aside, we know what they're putting into R&D to make these things perform better. But when it comes right down to it with a putter, how it looks when you set it down at a golf ball and how it feels when you strike the golf ball is probably the number one and the number two part of fitting a putter outside of the obvious technical side of it.
Yeah, players need to have, that confidence. And that's why manufacturers will have, Callaway, for an example, in their 10 line, they have, there's at least 10 models that are in there. Ping will come out with, dozens of models. I mean, the reason why there is so much variance in hosel shapes, in head shapes, in alignments, aids, is just because of personal preferences more than anything. I mean, they can all tune in things like loft, lie, length, weight, so forth. And as you mentioned, the technical aspect of getting fitting, it's important. But in the end, visually, you've got to be super comfortable with what you see over top of the golf ball, especially for alignment, which obviously is super important. You can put a good stroke on it, but if you can't align it properly, then it's not going to do you any good.
No, 100%. Okay, we only got a few categories left to go. So stick with us here, 613 golfers. We're getting through it. We're into the golf ball category, and again, an ever-changing category, and there's literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different golf balls, color schemes, dimple patterns, cover materials. So let's just kind of focus on some generalities with the golf ball category. And what did you see in there when you were producing this?
Yeah, we saw a lot of upgrades this year in particular features. Now, most golf companies really have about a 2-year product cycle in a lot of their premium products, for an example. The one continuing theme that we saw among a lot of the products this year was generally looking at the aerodynamic package. So not a huge amount of changes. In some cases there were, as far as the firmness of a golf ball. In some cases, maybe the launch characteristics or so forth. Did see a trend with some of them where they were maybe providing a little bit of a lower launch window, but at the same time, making sure that they match that up with a different dimple pattern so that the golf ball may be on a lower apex with less spin to help squeeze out a little bit more yardage, but doing it sort of a little bit flatter in the fact that but the dimples will help keep it in the air for a little bit longer. So generally a lot of times when a ball goes out flatter, it doesn't stay in the air that long. So a lot of times manufacturers would have been looking for a higher launch, but this is sort of a subtly changing the characteristics, and sometimes that's just matching up with some of the equipment that's out there. So you'll see from the major manufacturers a lot of emphasis definitely on the aerodynamic package. So when you dig through it, you'll see lots of mentions of the dimple patterns and so forth. Again, that really comes down to a lot of testing for players, and really, get something you're comfortable with, especially run your short game first, and then start to address the other aspects as you go back towards the tee.
Awesome. All right. So as we flip the page into the shoe category, what I found interesting with the shoe category is there's some similarities to what was out there last year, but I see number one, I see a little bit of back into history. Yep. Number two, I see a company like Adidas making improvements to what was a very popular shoe last year. And number three, I see Brooke Henderson and her influence on the LPGA with Skechers and what they've been able to accomplish in building their self a position in the golf shoe market.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll tackle all three of that because they are three really great, sort of angles that are happening in the shoe market. Again, a lot of people just say, it's just fashion, but that's not necessarily the case. What we do see is brands emerging, and Skechers, like you said, is a great example of that. At first, a lot of people, when they heard Skechers, they thought of these comfortable running shoes or whatever, and maybe they're just dabbling in the golf market. But with the presence of PGA Tour players, and then with the promotions with Brooke, for an example, it has definitely made its way into a lot of pro shops all over the place, and it's become a recognized brand in the golf business now. And to the point, and I mentioned that in the article, is that golf pros are now saying, we've got people now coming back for their second and third pairs, and they match up comfort with decent styling and a good price point. But the fact that people are now coming back to buy that second pair and third pair, that tells me that they are an established brand now, and not a novelty.
All right, Scott.
Yes.
Final category. Here we go. We're into technology and accessories. Now, this category could have been blown up and been a hot picks in itself because of how deep the categories could go with various accessories and so on that we see out there. But let's just, let's focus on one or two and wrap up this focus on hot picks with our technology and accessory section.
Yeah, I mean, first thing, when people think about technology in golf, it can cover off a lot of different things. But, one place that people, sort of hit commonly right now is things like GPS and rangefinders. Almost everybody now has one, on their bag or on their cart or whatever the case may be. And, we've seen other brands sort of emerge. These things are not cheap. As far as from an investment standpoint, but we've seen some companies start to come into the market in different ways to realize that a lot of people do want that information, but they don't necessarily want to pay $500, $600, $700. So one company that's come in is a company from Scotland called ShotScope, and they've got a Pro L1 rangefinder that they've come out with. And one of the neat parts about them is that it has a lot of the same features you would find in higher end rangefinders, be it slope, the distance that it has, magnification as far as the view is concerned. But the other side with this one is they actually created a Canadian fulfillment center, which is really cool. So they actually let me know in advance that they were going to establish a place in Ontario where they're going to be able to ship stuff from, because a lot of people were, buying stuff from the States or whatever. They just decided that, hey, you know what, 17 to 20 days was too long, and they wanted to be able to, ship stuff out to people in shops and stuff much faster. So really cool to see those companies come in there, and we're talking in the couple $100 range rather than $600 and $700 range. At the same time, other of those top premium companies, which Bushnell, for an example, some people don't want so precise as far as the yardage. When I say so precise, they don't necessarily want it down to the yard. They want basic information. They want it to the front of the green, back of the green, to the middle, and give it to them easy and don't make it really expensive for them. So Bushnell has got a great little system called the Phantom 2, which is basically just, it looks like the size of a watch face. It's magnetic, so it'll clip to your cart, or if you've got a metal part of your golf bag, for an example. Real simple. You just attach it to that. It'll track where you're at, just like any other kind of GPS device. Gives you that front, middle, back, gives you the most basic information. We'll read it out for you, and it's something that you can buy for under $200. In fact, about $150 or so. Comes in lots of different little cool colors and stuff like that as well, even a camo one. But a neat way to get that yardage and take advantage of that technology without having to make a major investment. And then if you lose it, you're not down as much. And I can tell you, for somebody that's lost a couple of rangefinders, it's a pretty expensive thing when you do. So this is an easier way to go about it.
Well, there you have it, 613 golfers. You have kind of a pulled together short Cole's Notes version of what you're going to see when you dive into the spring 2020 or 2021, called 2K21, the spring 2K21 version of Hot Picks in the spring issue of Flagstick Golf Magazine. You're going to be able to get that at flagstick.com. You're going to be able to watch this podcast or listen to this podcast, and you'll be able to listen to everything that we've had to say about it. My good friend Scott Mccloud, thank you. Thank you so much for all the work and the effort that you put into this compiling Hot Picks. I know that I appreciate it. I know that the readers of the magazine have appreciated it for 25 years. And I'm sure they're looking forward to what we do in 2K22.
Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I can tell you testing is going to start probably right away.
All right. Thanks very much, Scott, for being here. Enjoy your little bit of rest, what little bit of rest it is, and we'll talk to you very soon, I'm sure. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. Well, there goes Scott Mccloud, Associate Publisher of Flagstick Golf Magazine. Great little chat with Scott. Kind of a long one, but that's a lot of pages of golf equipment and a lot of stuff to talk about. So I'm really excited to dig in and read it all myself. Obviously, it was just released, so I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing yet. But I hope everybody enjoys it. Scott puts a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of effort into compiling that every year, and it is our biggest edition of the year. So thanks very much to Scott for coming on and talking about it with us. Now, you will recall we do have our little contest going on, your favorite hole in the 613 region. And this is week number 2 of that contest. We get about 20-30 entries a week, which is good. Like to see more, but that's fine. We'll ramp it up slowly. This week's winner is Stuart Crookshank. Stuart chose number 17 from the Cornwall Golf and Country Club. That is his home course, and we allow that. Obviously, we encourage you to pick a hole from your home course if that's the hole that's your favorite. So thanks, Stuart, for your submission. Thanks to everybody else for their submissions. And we'll be sending Stuart a couple of passes to play Smuggler's Glen Golf Course later on this summer once things reopen. So thanks for that. If you want to get your submission into us, please do so by sending them to jbotter@flagstick.com. Give us the name of the golf course and the hole number. And if you have a photo of the golf hole that is your favorite, or you want to take one on your phone while you're out on the golf course, feel free to do so. Stuart did that. We have that picture. And obviously, if you're watching this podcast, you can see that picture to the side of me. Now, back to the lesson tee. Every week, Kevin Haim, we get out to the lesson tee with Kevin Haim or other PGF Canada teaching professionals. But right now, Kevin's providing us with an awful lot of quick tips for you. So let's head out to the lesson tee and see what Kevin's got for us this week.
A little quick tip out here at the Kevin Haim Golf Center, and this one involves chipping. And I can tell you, as I don't practice as much as I used to, Sometimes I get a little bit hesitant on these shots. Here's a fix if you're a little hesitant over your chip shots. Load your weight on your lead leg and swing the club back, but as you swing through, bump your trailing knee through with the club. It'll give you a little momentum, and just make sure you always hit a nice crisp shot. Don't try to just putt the ball. Instead, swing back and then bump that back knee a little bit. It'll keep your club moving and help you hit crisper chip shots.
Well, thanks for that, Kevin. I hope everybody's enjoying Kevin's tips. Little quick tips like that, something that you can, if you're listening to the podcast in your car on the way to the range, or, pull up the video of the podcast and listen to it there, that's fine. And you can get those little quick tips, and hopefully they help you out with some of the aspects of your game and making things a little bit easier. Now, one of the things that I want to talk about too really quickly, because of we're following that quick tip, is as we release the spring edition of Flagstick Magazine, it is our 25th anniversary. We've been talking about that. We're going to continue to talk about that because it is a very exciting time for us to celebrate such a high accomplishment. And Kevin and I sat down and talked at the beginning of the year about how can we do something different? This is a different time. It's a different era. How can we do something different with the tips to make them maybe a little bit more interesting, a little bit more exciting for people, and still kind of capture that history and that nostalgia that goes along with it? Well, what we came up with is, and you'll hear it in the video, is what we came up with is we're going to take one tip. Kevin's going to choose one tip from each of the 5 eras of the last 25 years, 96 to 2020. Kevin's going to take a group. This first one, 1996 to 2000, Kevin has selected a tip that was one that he remembered well, liked, and felt that was still very valid today. And rather than rewrite the tip or just publish the tip as it was back then, because everything's digital now, we're not doing anything by print. So what's the point in having it just for you to read? We wanted to have something for you to see and hear as well. So what we're doing is we're shooting a series of 25th anniversary instruction series, and there's going to be one tip from each of the 5 eras of Flagstick over the last 25 years from Kevin, and we're going to shoot those in video form, and Kevin's going to refer back to that original tip, and he might update it a little bit, he might not. You'd be surprised what's still quite valid instruction nowadays that was valid instruction 20 years ago or 25 years ago. So we're going to do that over the course of the summer, and the feature instruction is going to be similar to that, and we're going to leave that as a bit of a surprise. I don't want to give away too much, but again, we're doing things in video form. You'll be able to see the video directly in the digital publication, and you can find the digital publication right now at flagstick.com. If you are a subscriber to the digital magazine, you will have gotten that before everybody else. So generally the subscribers to the digital magazine, we release the digital issue to them at least 2 or 3 hours, sometimes a little bit longer depending on production, before Flagstick Golf Magazine Digest, FGM Digest newsletter is released, and then released to flagstick.com. So check it out at flagstick.com. I think you'll enjoy it. Well, that's it for me for this week. I want to thank Scott Mccloud again for coming on and spending a good amount of time with us talking about hot picks and really digging into the what's and whys of how hot picks came about this year, and talking through some of that equipment with us. Obviously, if you haven't listened to us before or watched us before, you can check out any of the past episodes of 613Golfer podcast at flagstick.com. If you like listening, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, perfect place to subscribe, download those podcasts there and listen whenever you like. If you like watching, some people do, and I do encourage that. We do a lot of things in the YouTube version of this show that you don't see, obviously, in the audio version. So check us out on YouTube, subscribe to the Flagstick channel on YouTube, click the little notification bell, and make sure that you get every episode as we release them. You'll get notifications of that. We do encourage that. And I want to, everybody have a great week. Stay safe, stay calm, relax. Golf will come back. There's a lot of people working in our favor, trying to make golf happen again. We're not just sitting around waiting. People are getting their hands dirty and getting the job done. I'm Jeff Botter. You're listening to 613 Golfer podcast. And always remember, go for the stick.